You know exactly what you need to do, but you can't bring yourself to start, even after promising yourself you would. What if the problem isn't lack of willpower, but a simple brain mechanism you've never learned to control? In this video, I'll share 6 neuroscience-backed strategies used by high performers that will rewire your brain to eliminate mental laziness for good. I discovered these techniques after spending years stuck in cycles of procrastination, despite having ambitious goals. The problem is, most people think mental laziness is a character flaw they need to fight, when research from Stanford's Behavior Design Lab shows it's actually a habit pattern that can be completely reprogrammed. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to override your brain's default mode and create automatic motivation that doesn't require constant willpower. Let's dive in. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your brain's resistance to starting tasks isn't about the task itself. It's about how your brain perceives the energy cost before you even begin. The 2-minute activation rule means you commit only to working on something for exactly 2 minutes, no more, no less. You're not committing to finishing the project, writing the entire essay, or completing the workout. You're just committing to 2 minutes of action. Set a timer, start the task, and when the timer goes off, you have full permission to stop. Research from behavioral psychology shows that 80% of the resistance you feel exists before you start, not during the task itself. This works because your brain's amygdala interprets large tasks as threats, triggering avoidance responses. When you reduce the commitment to just 2 minutes, you're hacking your brain's threat detection system. Once you start, your prefrontal cortex activates, dopamine begins flowing, and the task suddenly feels manageable. Studies from the Journal of Behavioral Medicine found that people who used micro-commitments were 300% more likely to follow through than those who focused on completing entire tasks. First, identify your most avoided task right now, the one that makes you feel heavy just thinking about it. Second, set a timer for exactly 2 minutes and commit only to those 120 seconds, nothing more. Third, during those 2 minutes, focus only on the absolute smallest starting action. If it's a report, just open the document and type 1 sentence. Fourth, when the timer ends, genuinely give yourself permission to stop, though you'll often find you naturally want to continue. The mistake people make is trying to commit to finishing, which triggers the same avoidance response. For instance, instead of saying, "I need to write this entire article," say, "I'll write for just 2 minutes, then I'm done." But that's not all. This next technique targets the root cause of why your brain chooses mental laziness in the first place. This next one is crucial because most people try to fight mental laziness with willpower alone, which is like trying to swim upstream constantly. Environmental friction engineering means deliberately designing your physical space to make productive behaviors easier and lazy behaviors harder. You're creating friction for bad habits and removing friction for good habits. Think of friction as the number of steps between you and an action. High friction means more steps, more obstacles. Low friction means immediate access with 0 barriers. Duke University research found that 45% of our daily behaviors are habits driven by environmental cues, not conscious decisions. This works because your brain is fundamentally lazy in a good way. It's always seeking the path of least resistance to conserve energy. When you engineer your environment correctly, the path of least resistance becomes the productive path. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles willpower, has limited capacity and depletes throughout the day. Environmental design bypasses willpower entirely by making the right choice the automatic choice. B.J. Fogg's research at Stanford shows that environment is often more powerful than motivation. First, conduct a friction audit by looking around your space and identifying what's immediately accessible. If lazy options are within arm's reach, you'll default to them. Second, add friction to unproductive behaviors by creating physical barriers. Put your phone in another room, delete social media apps from your home screen, unplug your TV and store the remote in a drawer. Third, remove friction from productive behaviors by pre-positioning everything you need, Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Keep your book on your pillow. Open the document you need to work on. Fourth, make your productive environment so smooth that starting feels effortless. The common mistake is keeping temptations nearby and relying on willpower to resist them. Willpower always loses to convenience over time. For instance, instead of keeping your phone on your desk and promising yourself you won't check it, physically lock it in your car during work hours. Now, you might be thinking, what about when you're already in motion but feel your energy draining? That's exactly what this next technique prevents. Most people don't know this, but mental laziness often isn't about being tired. It's about having a depleted dopamine baseline that makes everything feel effortful and unrewarding. The dopamine deficit protocol is a strategic reset of your brain's reward system by temporarily eliminating all high dopamine activities for 24 to 48 hours. This means no social media, no video games, no junk food, no endless scrolling, no Netflix binges, no shopping, nothing that gives you easy pleasure. You're essentially creating a dopamine fast to recalibrate your brain's sensitivity to rewards. Research from neuroscience shows that constant exposure to high dopamine activities desensitizes your dopamine receptors, making normal productive activities feel boring and unrewarding by comparison. This works because when you remove artificial dopamine spikes, your baseline dopamine sensitivity increases dramatically. After a dopamine fast, activities that previously felt difficult, like reading, studying, or working, suddenly feel engaging because your brain is starved for stimulation and finds genuine satisfaction in productive work. Dr. Anna Lembach from Stanford explains that dopamine balance is like a seesaw. Constant artificial highs create compensatory lows that manifest as mental laziness and lack of motivation. First, choose a 24-hour window, ideally a weekend day when you have fewer obligations and can commit fully. Second, before you start, write down all the activities you're eliminating. Be honest about your dopamine sources like phone scrolling, gaming, sugary foods, even music if you use it constantly. Third, during the fast, allow yourself only low dopamine activities like walking in nature, reading physical books, journaling, stretching, cooking simple meals, or sitting in silence. Fourth, notice the discomfort and boredom without trying to escape it. This is your brain recalibrating. The mistake people make is substituting one high dopamine activity for another, like replacing social media with YouTube videos. For instance, instead of going from Instagram to TikTok, sit with the boredom and let your brain reset completely. But wait, there's a scientific reason why some people seem naturally driven while others struggle constantly, and you can train this specific ability. Here's where it gets fascinating. The deepest form of mental laziness comes from a misalignment between your actions and your identity, and your brain will always default to behaviors that match who you believe you are. The identity shift technique means changing your self-perception from someone who does things occasionally to someone who is that type of person. Instead of saying, I want to exercise, you say, I am an athlete. Instead of, I should read more, you say, I am a reader. This isn't positive affirmations or manifestation. It's strategic identity construction based on behavioral psychology. Research from Stanford psychologist James Clear shows that behavior change is most sustainable when it comes from identity, not outcomes. This works because your brain has a powerful drive for internal consistency called cognitive consonance. When there's a mismatch between your identity and your actions, your brain experiences discomfort and will change one to match the other. If you identify as someone trying to get fit, skipping workouts doesn't create dissonance because you're not claiming to be fit yet. But if you identify as an athlete, skipping workouts creates psychological discomfort that motivates action. Studies from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that identity-based habits are 2.5 times more likely to stick than outcome-based habits. First, identify the specific identity you want to embody. Be precise, like, I am someone who finishes what they start, or I am a disciplined person. Second, collect evidence for this identity by starting with tiny actions Every time you do even the smallest version of the behavior, you're casting a vote for this new identity. Third, use identity, affirming language when you make decisions. Instead of, I can't eat that, say, I don't eat that because I'm someone who respects their body. Fourth, make your identity visible through environmental cues. If you're a reader, keep books everywhere. If you're organized, maintain visible systems. The mistake people make is choosing aspirational identities that feel fake, causing their brain to reject them. For instance, instead of jumping to, I am a marathon runner, when you've never jogged, start with, I am someone who moves their body daily, and build evidence gradually. This brings me to something even more powerful that elite performers use to maintain consistent mental energy throughout the day.